Without a doubt, the scariest thing that Pringle dealt with as a kid were waking nightmares. He always suffered from these very intense, vivid nightmares, but he used to have them while he was awake. They would take inspiration from the surroundings and produce dreamlike logic to create the most horrific visions imaginable. The worst was a crocodilian creature that tried to climb into Pringle's bed using a bone ladder that he summoned at will. Now, he outgrew this childish phase before he was 6, and he was glad to never have that happen again. But his vivid nightmares continued, and they even reached new heights.
James Shark worked in the fish section at Walmart. One day, someone was complaining that she couldn't open the tank to get a fish. She then raged, grabbed a hammer nearby, and smashed the tank. Then she yelled because there weren't any fish, since she had smashed an empty tank. She went to smash one full of fish, but slipped and the hammer hit her on the head, knocking her out. Like any good employee, James Shark screamed,
She needs some milk.
and ran away.
This is a rather short story, but it was pretty freaky. One night, I was walking home from a friend's house just up the street, and while I was passing this patch of forest that rests in the center of my neighborhood, I heard a noise among the trees. I looked to my right, and there, standing in the forest, trying to conceal himself, was this old man who was watching me. For a time, I stared at him, and he just stared back at me. Both of us a good distance apart. It was pretty weird seeing this old homeless-looking man standing out in the woods, but I just sucked up my fear, and as casually as I could, I made my way home the rest of the way, pretending I saw nothing.
When Snoopy was about 7 or 8 years old, she went to the gas station across the street to get some candy. As she was looking at the candy bars, an old man walked in. He walked down the aisle Snoopy was in, stopped behind her, put his hands on her shoulders, and gripped them tightly. Snoopy immediately felt uncomfortable. The man got so close to Snoopy's ear, she could feel his breath on her neck. Then he whispered, "Wanna know how my daughter died?" Snoopy stood frozen and didn't say a word. The man continued, "I just can't handle some girls, but I'm sure I can handle you." Snoopy started whimpering in fear, but at that point, the cashier told the man to leave. The man flicked Snoopy's ear and left. The cashier bought Snoopy a candy pack of gum because he felt bad.
When Ladybot was a child, she craved some strange stuff. Raw hot dogs, plain butter, Cool Whip on bread, just random shit like that. The weirdest thing she craved, though, was coins. As far as I know, she doesn't have pica, but she really fucking loved the taste of metal. She'd usually just put them in her mouth, but she has swallowed quite a few coins with relatively few fucks given. Thankfully, her coin craving has been replaced with healthier cravings for soup or spaghetti.
Sid was at Vacation Bible School volunteering as a storyteller for kindergarten kids, telling them about the different Bible characters. One of the kids was saying that Jesus was everyone's friend, so Sid ad-libbed and said,
"I wish I could meet him. Maybe he could be my friend."
The kid replied with a completely emotionless face,
"You have to die to meet him. He could probably drown, since you said you can't swim."
Sweet Commander had 2 different jobs at the same place. Both of them were 12-hour night shifts. The first was to watch boards go by on an assembly line. If you saw something wrong with the board, you had to tell someone on the other side to take it off the line. The second was to press a button. Every 45 minutes they needed someone to press a big run manual override button. So Sweet Commander sat there for 12 hours a day with a stopwatch, hitting the button every 45 minutes till the shift ended.
I was writing a term paper once about the effects of carbon dioxide emissions on the atmosphere. It was a big project, it went for the whole semester and it was like a whole subject's worth of work. We got to the very last week and we were editing, and I noticed there was a line in the report that said that carbon dioxide emissions were dangerous because they were depleting the ozone layer. Now, if you've never done a class about environmental science or anything like that, you might be forgiven for thinking that's true. But at the end of a whole project about this topic, you would expect that a person would know that that's not the case. I got pretty upset because I'd worked very hard on the report, and the person that had written that just explained it by saying they were just trying to fill up words in the report. And you know what? That's fine. As long as those words are worth something. And you know, true. I swear I could have jumped the table at him. If you're listening, not cool, man.
Gergak once worked at a large department store that sold a wide variety of things. One day, a woman walked up to the counter and told him she wanted a refund for 2 adult toys she had purchased. He explained that for a refund, she would need to bring the items in for inspection. To his shock, she reached between her legs and pulled out 2 vibrators, one from each hole. She then placed them down on the counter and told Gergak that she wanted a refund because they didn't work. He was speechless as he backed away slowly and then ran to find a manager to deal with the insane woman.
It's the thing I got caught doing at school. Well, me and my friends used to breaking into classrooms that were closed off randomly. We would pick the locks and just go in and just start moving shit around like we were just giant cunts. One day, as I was wandering around the classroom, I heard the doorknob start to shake and I was like, oh shit, oh no. So my friends just ran out of the room through the back entrance. But I decided randomly, because I'd been playing a lot of Metal Gear Solid, to just hide behind stuff as the teacher was looking around. So I crouched down and started just tunneling behind objects as she was looking around the classroom trying to figure out who was there. I would just have my arms against little objects, you know, looking around corners and stuff, being a real badass super spy. And eventually she gave up and walked out. And my friends were like, oh shit, that was really cool. And then the next time, as we were breaking into a classroom, there was someone already in there, and my friends ran off, and I was standing there at the unlocked door looking like an idiot. I ran off, but the teacher was like, I know it's you. And so I was like, I got caught. Okay.
About a year ago, during summer, Melissa would constantly get up late at night to watch TV downstairs. But to do this, she had to wait for her parents to fall asleep. Her family consists of her dad, mom, and 2 brothers. Her older brother was sleeping in the same room as Melissa, and her dad, mom, and little brother were all in the other room. So, one night, when they were asleep, she sneaked downstairs. But when she reached the bottom, Melissa saw what she thought was her dad watching TV with his back turned to her. She went back upstairs, but as she went up, Melissa noticed that her parents' bedroom door was open. Her mom always wanted it closed, so she decided to go close it and noticed her dad was in the room, sleeping next to her mom. So that brings up the question, who the fuck was the person downstairs? Melissa quickly woke up her parents, and when they went downstairs to take a look, no one was there.
One night, Honeybit's aunt was over for dinner, and she brought her pesky cousins with her. Honeybits really hated when the younger one came into her room, so she decided to chew 12 pieces of gum, stick them to a strip of fly paper, and duct tape it to the sides of the doorway. She anticipated her to walk on it with her shoes on, but she forgot that her cousin pretty much never wore shoes. So when her cousin's foot got stuck in the bubblegum trap, she cringed while she watched her cousin trying to pull it off. In the end, Honeybits was grounded for 2 weeks.
On her first date ever, Gooby went to the movies with a guy she liked. She was really nervous, so she suggested they see a kids movie. That way she could bring her little sister along. As they waited in line to get tickets, Gooby's date started talking about his friend Bob. Kept going on and on about how Bob makes him real happy. Goopy was really confused. Her date then pulled out a pocket-sized bong and introduced it as Bob. Goopy was shocked, tried to keep her sister from seeing it. The guy kept going on and on about Bob, and then had the nerve to ask if Goopy would buy his snacks and movie ticket. Goopy ended up dumping him before they even went into the theater, but the guy still came in and sat behind them. He spent the whole movie annoying Gooby, begging her to take him back. He kept this up for 2 whole weeks. Well, he might not have gotten Gooby, but at least he has fucking Bob.
Olap once saw a woman in the clothes store trying on pants, which wouldn't be so unusual if she was using the changing rooms, but she wasn't in the changing rooms. In the middle of the store, she'd take some pants off the rack, pull up her skirt, and shimmy into the pants. When they didn't fit, she would throw them on the ground without hanging them back up. The worst part of it all was that she wasn't wearing underpants. He could see her entire downstairs squeezing into jeans that were clearly too small for her. It was super gross.
When Tulip was a kid, his parents took him shopping every Sunday, but Tulip would always run off to his favorite stores. He loved everything about shopping, except the creepy mannequins they had in the clothing stores. Tulip's dad eventually got sick of him running off all the time, so he told Tulip that the mannequins were once bad children who run away from their parents. As punishment, they lost their faces and were frozen for the rest of their lives. This traumatized the hell out of Tulip, and he spent the next couple of years doing everything he was told. He continued to believe that mannequins were cursed children until he was 16, and even today they still creep him out.
You know those library computers that you log in through your account that's associated with your school name? Well, one day I came back to the library after having a break, and I logged into my account. And what was I to find but my entire Windows desktop filled with files that just had the name "fuck you" over and over and over and over. And I opened up my folder that contained all my work and reports for school, only to find the words "fuck you" over and over and over and over, instead of all the work I'd been accumulating for years. This was definitely my worst bullying encounter because it set me back in the class by months and I had to redo all my essays. So thanks, you anonymous cunt!
Spincess and her mom were grocery shopping one day, and while looking for the lettuce, Spincess saw one of her friends from high school. They talked for a bit before Spincess's mom left them alone to grab some cereal. There was an awkward silence after she left. Eventually, the man said, "You and your mom are giving me a huge boner." Spincess looked up from her phone in disgust as the man just stared at her as if he did nothing wrong. Spincess called store security, which turned out to be a good thing. Apparently, the guy was a wanted rapist.
Andy and her boyfriend have the most annoying roommate ever. He always rearranges their things and does super loud and inappropriate things. Every morning when he makes his breakfast, he slams the fridge and cupboard doors 5 or 6 times. And late at night when everyone is asleep, he slams the bathroom cabinet door many times. He also has no concept of personal space and often just walks in on Andy when she's changing or being intimate with her boyfriend. He doesn't even realize he's being inappropriate when he does this. He just stands there awkwardly making conversation. Andy can't wait until this creepo moves out.
It was a normal casual day for me and I started streaming. I was streaming Super Nintendo games and having a blast. Then somebody in the Twitch stream came in and told me, "Hey Pringle, how about you do this?" He told me to look left, then look right, then look back, then look up, then touch my nose. And then he said, "Ha ha! I got you to do stupid weird things, you dumb weirdo! Ha ha!" And then he left. After that, I'll never trust Gergak again.
Emoji was 16 when he met a girl who was cute, giggly, and fun, so he asked her out. Emoji had no money, so he cooked bacon and eggs for dinner, but that wasn't the worst of it. Her mom stayed for the date, and Emoji was like,
What? Why is your mother on our date?
He was a bit confused, so her mother explained. Turned out she was actually Russian, adopted as a baby to her parents, and that she was really 9 years old. Well, she has some growth condition in which she has the body of a 15 to 16-year-old. The parents were completely understanding, knowing that Emoji saw a 16-year-old girl, which technically she is. She has the body of one. Her parents were quite understanding that he wasn't actually wanting to date a 9-year-old girl. Emoji and the girl remained friends for a while, but after some time lost touch.
When Pringle was little, he hated his babysitter. Now, she hated it when a child of any age cried, and Pringle, well, he had a baby sister. One time, when his baby sister cried, the babysitter yelled at her to shut up, or she would have to go to her room. But his baby sister continued to cry, so the babysitter dragged her to her room by one arm. She also hated it when she had to change diapers, and she barely even fed Pringle or his sister. The only time she would feed them was if there were leftovers. She also would make them take naps, and if they didn't sleep, she would give Pringle and his sister spankings that wouldn't leave behind any marks. The babysitter even told Pringle that if he ever said anything to his parents, they wouldn't believe him, and they would punish him harshly for lying, something Pringle believed because he was a gullible kid. It all came to an end, though, when Pringle's dad came home while the babysitter was screaming and threatening Pringle and his sister with spankings for not sleeping. She was fired on the spot, and Pringle never saw her again.
One time, Gurgak and his friend were stuck on a really difficult level of Donkey Kong. Gurgak's friend suggested they call the official Nintendo hotline to get some help, so Gurgak went and grabbed his mom's phone. Gurgak ended up messing up the number and calling a phone sex hotline by accident. They realized their mistake right away, but decided to play along. Gurgak put the woman on speaker and they both had a good laugh about it. Unfortunately, Gurgak's parents weren't very happy about the expensive phone sex charges on their bill. That was an uncomfortable conversation for Gurgak.
When Pandora once went to an Indian restaurant with her family, they were all happily eating their food. When her dad put half of one of his chilies on her plate, she didn't notice until her dad said she ate the whole thing. For the next 15 minutes, she was screaming and drinking everyone else's drinks, including her mom's champagne. Her dad found it so funny he told her, "Eat another one and I'll give you $50. She couldn't resist an offer like that and spent another 20 minutes panting while the hot chili stung her whole mouth.
Back when Ramona was dating her boyfriend, she had to go to her room to change. When she entered, she saw her boyfriend watching the Discovery Channel with his dick hanging out and holding a pair of her panties. He whispered, "That animal is the fastest? Lies, my dick is." He went on to say, "I gotta fuck that bitch." Ramona asked him what the fuck he was doing. All he said was that he was getting the condoms ready. It turned out that he was planning on breaking up with her by jizzing on her bed and stealing her panties.
Before he met the love of his life, Dolan had a bit of a crush on a girl in his class. He had no problems talking to her, but he couldn't figure out how to tell her how he felt. One day he decided to pay her a nice compliment. He went up to her desk, raised his eyebrows all seductively and said,
"Hey baby, you look like my cat?"
Now he had meant to tell her that she was pretty, but he was so nervous, the wrong words came out. She looked horrified, and that's when Dolan remembered he always telling her how gross and smelly his cat was. Dolan was definitely in the doghouse after that. It turns out, guys, that girls just don't like being compared to mangy household pets. Who would have thought?
When he was younger, Mikhailem was in his room standing on a bedside table, which he had dragged to the middle of the room so he could replace the light bulb. He was naked because he thought he was home alone. He had just gotten the cover off the light and bent over to grab a replacement bulb when the door quickly unlocked and his own brother barged into the room, yelling at the top of his lungs in a goofy voice. He scared Mikhailem so badly that he lost his balance, dropped the light cover, fell off the table and smacked his head on the floor. He was out cold for 5 minutes. When he finally came to, the very first thing his brother told him was that he looked like a complete moron falling off the table only to collapse naked.
One time, Dean was having a family dinner at home. His mom asked him to set up the silverware, so Dean gave his sister a big fork and his brother a smaller one. Dean's sister sneakily switched the forks when her brother wasn't looking, but he eventually noticed and went straight into anger mode. He threw his fork on the ground and started screaming about how his sister was the biggest jerk ever. His sister lied and said she hadn't done anything, and they argued about one little fork for 15 minutes. Dean sat there the whole time with no idea what to do. Eventually, their mom got involved. She replaced their forks with spoons and said, "Shut up and eat your freaking food!" The best part was that by the time they finished fighting, their dinner was completely cold.
Although Shima was a model student, her third grade teacher, Miss Bonnet, seemed to have a big problem with her. She was always yelling at Shima for everything she did, whether it was sharpening her pencil, asking to use the bathroom, having male friends, or even reading books beyond her grade level. One time Shima was drawing quietly during a free period. Miss Bonnets the bully didn't like this, so she picked up Shima's desk and dumped everything on it onto the floor. She then threw the desk down and demanded Shima clean it up and throw away her sketchbooks. She even ripped up one of Shima's Pokemon comic books and took off all of the front and back covers of Shima's notepads so she couldn't draw on them in class. This psycho was obviously jealous of Shima's drawing talents. She probably couldn't even draw a stick figure.
Nixium's grade was putting on a performance in front of their parents and the entire school. To know who was who, the teachers labeled Nixium and his classmates with a number. His friend, Derek, was given 69. Since he was going to introduce his grade to the audience, he put the microphone up to his mouth but turned it on too early. Nixium said,
Huh, wow, you're 69.
It blasted on the massive speakers and everyone fell silent. Parents gave him filthy looks, with the little kids asking what 69 meant.
Gurgak once dated a girl named Melon. One day, after they had been dating about 3 months, Melon was hanging out at Gurgak's house. Gurgak went to use the restroom, but when he was in the middle of peeing, Melon unlocked the bathroom door with a bobby pin. She came up behind Gurgak, pinched the tip of his penis, and started yelling at him for cheating on her with a girl named Mandy. After that, she stormed out and slashed the tires on Gurgak's mom's car. Melon later found out that Mandy was Gurgak's older sister, who had recently moved out. She apologized, but after that stunt, Gurgak wanted nothing more to do with her.